For us, the famous people were not people like Brad Pitt, or people like, singers or anything like that. For us was narcotraficantes. And, to be in a place where you get used to see people dead and people hung and people, with a high level of violence, and somehow you have to stay, without getting hurt, without becoming one of them. So as a kid, it was a very unfortunate thing, because a lot of my friends went into it and they didn't come out. My name is Cesar Millan, or Cesar Millan. I was born August 27, 1969, Culiacan, Sinaloa, under the roof of my grandmother, Adelina Favela Gutierrez. And my mom went to the hospital, and she has a beautiful story about how I was born. So something for her to share with you guys. It's very beautiful. Every time that I don't feel good, I just go and talk to her, and she reminds me how special I am for her. And it was a special day. My mom tells me that when I was born, a hurricane came and took the roof over my grandmother, Adelina, grandmother's roof. And that was my beginning on this planet, to meet a hurricane on my first day of being born. And so it's a good connection. It's a good relationship with Mother Nature, because I love elements. I love the wind, the water, the earth, and the fire. And so for me, all the anything that has to do with Mother Nature is very meaningful. It has a lot of power over me, and I love the meaning and the feeling of the representation of being born on this day with this particular challenge. And my mother, began to protect me, not only in the womb, but also as I came onto the earth. Then I grew up in a farm, Hispalino, Sinaloa. This is where my other two grandparents come into the picture. This is where I learned never to work against Mother Nature, through my grandfather, Teodoro Millan Angulo, and Maria, mi abuela, his wife. It brings me great memories, because I was born in an environment where you can call that poverty. But I just never felt poor. I never felt that anything was missing until we moved to the city. But I will let you know about that a little later. But so I grew up with my grandfather and my grandmother, my mother and my father at the farm with my older sister, where we learned the rules, the boundaries, the limitations of the land. How to be with the land and how to be with animals. In this particular house that I grew up, it was just one bedroom, and we practically slept. All of us sleep in one room. It was no privacy. It was none of that. We didn't have windows. The window was a chicken fence, where the cows will pass in the morning, and if my grandmother didn't throw water before the cows passed by, which is at 5 a.m., and then we will all woke up like shrimp tempura, with full of dust. But my grandmother was always very, very, very disciplined on that, and so we never had to suffer from that. We didn't have running water, so that means we have to go get water to the river. We have to walk, and I remember we had a stick and 2 buckets, and I will always accompany my grandfather. In a farm, I learned the traditional way of being, the man with the man, the woman with the woman. So that means we do all the chores that has to do with men type, anything that is heavy, anything that is poisonous, anything that can cut, anything that is from outside. It was our responsibility, so we had no choice, and we never saw it as like, do we have any other choice? It's just what we needed to do. So it was really good. I really like that discipline. I really like that focus. I really like that having no choice. You must help the pack, right? And that family, and I just having this memory right now, it really brings that memory back, because it's my grandfather, it's my dad. Every single day of my childhood, they were with me. And nowadays, when I see kids, they don't get to be with their parents every day. They didn't get to be with their grandparent every day, and let alone grandfather and father, and then there's you, right? So that's why for me it has so much meaning. And nowadays that I value life at another level is I was never poor. I was never poor, even though in the economy, in the economical status, I'm definitely considered poor. And another characteristic about where I grew up, believe it or not, I grew up right behind the church. So I'm Catholic by destination. I'm Catholic by destination. We have no choice. Which is good. Sometimes it's good not to have a choice of any other options, so that way you develop your discipline, and you develop your consistency, and you develop your connection with God, which I really appreciate it, because it's no way in the world I will be the dog whisperer without God, right? So I was practically born right behind him. No, I was practically raised right behind God's home, which is a church, right? And I remember I grew up with my cousin Enrique, and that was my moment where I get to do whatever activities, and we always went to the river. We always rode in a donkey. We always brought leña, which is firewood. And that's one thing we did for his home and for my home, and that was practically my only friend at the ranch. But we had a great time, because we spent a lot of time at the river. We spent a lot of time looking for frogs and looking for lizards, and we making volcanoes at the river. I remember to play when my cousins would come from the city, from Culiacan. They will come and they love to spend time at the river, because they live in the city, so they didn't get to be at the river. We live at the ranch, so we get to be with the river all the time, and so that was part of the thing. But one of my favorite thing to do is to eat. I am a foodie, and I think I developed being a foodie because I was always hungry. And I into today I burn a lot of energy, and when I'm hungry, I just want to eat something really good. And my grandmother made something really, because I had two grandmothers. Remember, I got two grandmothers. One was an incredible cook, and the other one, no, she, until today I still not forgive her because she only had one thing to make, versus my grandmother Maria. Her frijoles were amazing, her beans were incredible, and nobody else has made them like that. And this is where people used to cook with manteca, which is the lard, and as we know now, it's not unhealthy as they thought it was. So I went through a process where, don't eat lard because it's bad for the heart. But my grandfather and my grandmother died 105. Okay, so with that same, he never changed the diet. So we ate the same thing. So our diet would be incredible beans, Caldudos, that would be like number one. Queso fresco, fresh cheese, that would be number two. Nata, which is the top of the once you boil the milk, you know, fresh milk, by the way, fresh milk. We'll eat the top of it, and my grandmother will preserve that on a jar. And then once it was ready to give it to us, she will make it like quesadillas, but it has the nata on top and real salt, by the way. And now that I understand salt, I was eating real salt, like chunks of salt, like, and so I ate really healthy. I ate really healthy. Now that I know, when it was money enough, we'll have pieces of meat. My grandmother will put them in a skewer, just like what the Armenians do. How they do it? They put it in a wire, on a piece of metal, and my grandmother will make the best carne asada, and not too much, not all these salsas and all of that stuff. No, just the flavor of the meat, the flavor of the tortilla, and of course the hunger that I had at that time. So that's a little bit of my me growing up in the farm. Then we moved to the city because because my parents wanted me to go to school, and my dad needed to get a better job, not better job, but you know, a job that creates more money. And you know, it says evolution is coming in, and so my father is the youngest of 11, and he stayed with my parents. So I learned a lot about how to be a good son through my father. He's definitely the best son I ever seen in my life, and it's something that I admire from my father. You know how great of a son he was, and he still is, because he goes every single memorial day that is important, the birthday of my father and my grandfather, el Día de los Muertos, the Day of the Death, and Christmas. I mean, my dad visited my grandparents at least every other week. Okay, because we live in Culiacan, and they go to East Palino, which is the farm. By the way, we end up purchasing the house that I grew up, and as a memory, it's a very tiny little thing. And now we have running water. Now we have a toilet. Now we have a stove. Now we have all the good stuff. Nobody lives there, but my father likes to go over there too, so he can be close to his parents. And it's something that is very dear to his heart, because he's retired, so he has all this time in his hand. And so we move from the farm to permanently at the city, so I can go to school, so my sister and I can go to school, go to kindergarten, and that's where I began to understand that I was a little different than a lot of the kids, because a lot of the animals in the city will follow me. In Mazatlan is street dogs, and so they're everywhere. They're citizens of the place, and so it's not unusual for us to see dogs on the street, just like it's super normal to see dogs on the farm, off leash. Really, nobody ever put a leash on the dogs, and that was one of those things that I really saw that it was completely different, you know, coming from Mexico and then coming to America and see that most dogs were on a leash. So that was the unusual part. That was a shocking thing. But going back to my childhood, I went to Estefania Castañeda. That's the name of the kinder that I went to. My first teacher was Miss Wilma. And unfortunately, she passed away not too long ago, like a few years ago. But I was not old enough to go, but I remember that I used to follow my sister a lot. My sister Mireya, she's my older sister, 2 years older than me, and I just didn't want to stay in the apartment, you know, because we moved from the farm where you can have all this freedom. And now in the apartment, now you can't go anywhere, right? So it's kind of boring. I didn't understand at that time why, but I just didn't want to stay at the apartment all day. So my mom managed to convince the teacher of my sister so I can go to kindergarten. So I began kindergarten earlier than normal, and that's where my good socialization began, right? Because now I went from having my cousin Enrique to having a lot more kid friends, and I became, I guess, fell in love with the first girl, a first cute girl. I forgot her name, but I remember that I definitely got into this. You know, I wanted to look good. I wanted to look good. I wanted to do more stuff, more activities. I remember in those times, they would definitely encourage kids to do poetry. And I would definitely participate in dancing and poetry. So I went to elementary school named Antonio Rosales. I remember two things about that. I remember how hungry I was because my mom would never give us money for recess. She just didn't want us to buy anything because she didn't want us to have like a bad stomach ache or like bad teeth. I remember that was the reason that she said why we can't have money to buy food. But I was just, and then the second thing I remember about that school is to get to the school, you have to go to the stairs. And these stairs, to me back then, it looked like 100 steps. It looked like a forever. It looks like a pyramid, you know. And we didn't have, a transportation. We didn't have none of that. We just walked. We just walked to school. Another thing that is important for people to know about where I grew up is I grew up in a state called Sinaloa. So, yes, I was born in Culiacan, Sinaloa. Then I grew up in Hispalino, and then now in Mazatlan, Sinaloa. But one thing that's very unfortunate for a lot of kids is the narco state. And for those who watch Narcos 3, I grew up in a moment when the Federation was created. I remember for us, the famous people were not people like Brad Pitt or people like singers or anything like that. For us was narco trafficantes. And to be in a place where you get used to see people dead and people hung and people with a high level of violence, and somehow you have to stay without getting hurt, without becoming one of them. So as a kid, it was a very unfortunate thing, because a lot of my friends went into it and they didn't come out. They went for the easy money, they went for the power, and just never came back. They just unfortunately passed away. So it's important for me to tell you this because those are challenges that some of us go through, and it makes us who we are, and also proves that good humans can come from places where aggression or crime is at a high level, where the temptation is at a high level, where money, fame, and power is at the highest level you can think of. Sinaloa is definitely known as a narco state, and we just get used to it until we move out of there. We don't realize the magnitude of like the power of narcotraficantes, and the influence they have over the land and over the people and over the culture, even over the music. And so I grew up in it. And I remember one time I was 10 years old, and I told my mom, when I grew up, I'm gonna be a drug dealer. And she slapped me, pow! I remember very clearly because I saw her worry in her face, and her disappointment in her face, and her fear in her face. And And of course I had no idea what I just said. And I have no idea what being a narco trafficante was all about. I was no idea. I had no idea, at that time, what the magnitude of that profession is. And I came to my mind and said, "Mom, when I get," but in my mind, it's just because we're low-income family, and my dad works all day, and my mom is a simster. My mom is a seamstress, and so she takes care of her kids. By that time, we're 5, and then she has to, sew from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. I remember I used to lay down by her side like a little puppy, and because I didn't want her to stay by herself just sewing, because she had to wake up at 6, so she can just do the whole thing all over again. Give us breakfast, take us to school, make sure that we're safe, So my mom was a super mom, but I came that day, and I said, Mom, when I get older, I'm going to be a drug cartel. And she slapped me, and she said, "If you want to kill me, that's what you do." And of course, that's not. I would say 99% of us Latinos, or 99% of us Mexicans, we will never do anything to harm our mother. Actually, for us, our mother is sacred. It's right next to God. It's right next to the Virgin. So it's like it's far from it. We will put our hands for our mother, and so that was not the reason, And when she say, "If you want to kill me, that's what you do," and now I understand what she meant by that, right? Because she will become sad. She will be so afraid. She will be so disappointed, that her son will choose such a profession. And so from that point on, thanks God, we got our first TV, and I started watching Lassie and Rin Tin Tin. I was a kid that was always outside. I was never a kid that can be indoor watching TV like the kids nowadays. It's nowhere in the world that this kid will ever want to be, as soon as he wake up, and his first choice is to be in front of a TV. But I grew up watching Lassie and Rin Tin Tin, and it was a certain amount of time because we are in the low-income bracket. We have to take care of everything. We have to make sure that we don't waste water, that we don't waste food, that we don't waste electricity, right? So we were in the saving mode, and that helped a lot, right? That helped a lot. And I'm very particular in what I like to watch. I like to watch anything that has to do with happiness, anything that has to do with health, anything that has to do with passion, and anything that makes me smart. And so for me, watching Lassie and Rin Tin Tin, it was very happy to me. It was very healthy. It was very loving, and it was very smart. Because due to those TV shows is when, a few years later, when I was 13 years old and walking on the Malecón in Mazatlan, and my mom again is taking me to a judo competition, I stop, and every time I go to this place in Mazatlan, I always go to the place that I declare, where I told my mom, "Mom, you think I can be the best dog trainer in the world?" And she turns around and she looks at me, "You can be whatever you want, as long as you're not a drug cartel." And that, for me, that was it. That was the permission that I needed. That was the acceptance that I needed. That was the connection that I needed, the agreement that I needed. And from that point on, that's it. I said, I'm gonna be the best dog trainer in the world. And then I went to my judo competition, and my mom never watched it, by the way, because I was the smallest of the whole team, but I always won. I was a champion, and my dad used to call me the champion. And so that was my nickname from my father, the champion. Way before I became the champion, I was the champion. So I just did what I needed to do. I'm a very competitive human being, and so I've been competitive my whole entire life. And that day, at 13 years of age, I declared I wanted to be the best dog trainer in the world. And so from that point on, I began to work on helping veterinarians, helping groomers, helping dog trainers, helping whatever has anything to do with dog. I wanted to help. I wanted to be part of it. I did it for free. At one point in my life, I wanted to be a vet. But because, again, my parents come from a hardworking mind, but not, didn't know how to grow the money. So I couldn't go to Mexico City or Guadalajara, which that's where they teach you about small animals. Where I'm from, they do have veterinarian school, but they only teach you about pigs and cows. And I didn't want to work with pigs and cows. I don't want to be a vet. Not that there's anything wrong, but my preference is dogs, and so I wanted to be a vet for dogs. But because economically speaking, I couldn't do it. And then my second choice was to become the best dog trainer in the world. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment, and join me on my mission of better humans, better planet.